that glorifies God and represents your own unique personality.
You got to understand, branding is an aspect of this culture, but your brand is really a reflection of your calling, right? Make sure you always know that your brand, the marketing aspects of it, must match a calling that is submitted to the caller. I'm guilty of it. I separated brand in regards, instead of being a calling, into being a marketing engine, a product engine about building a brand versus building people. I almost sabotaged myself because I got so caught up on how many likes, how many followers, how can we get this in this city, this country, how can we do this, how can we build the brand. Churches today have been consumed with building brands. Individuals outside of the church who are Christians have been more focusing in building brands. Musicians, brands. Artists, brands. Businessmen and women, brands. More so than building and advancing God's kingdom. Your brand is a subsidiary to the brand called heaven. When you understand that his company should be the, what's that thing called? The holdings company to your branding. Meaning that everything up under that holdings company is in the mission of pushing that mission. If it's all about, listen, you got to be honest with yourself. What do you want this brand to represent? That's why before you build a brand, digest it, think it through, ask yourself tough questions. Ask yourself, what do you want to be known for? And if you don't know what your desired outcomes are, then you won't even know in what direction you should go. So when it comes to, let's separate the two. First off, your calling. You got to have a heart for it. You got to have such a heart for it that you got to be able to stomach the unfortunate seasons. People see the end of a brand versus the sweat and the tears that it takes to build it. If you remove the word brand and focus on my purpose, everything that spawns from that is a reflection of your purpose in the hand of the person of God. That matters, because you'll find yourself, there's many people, many albums, many groups, many opportunities that started anointed. Oh, you play their first album, you hear their early messages, you listen to their early conversations, and you're like, there's a power here. But the devil knows the best way to suffocate power is prosperity. That's why it says easier for a rich man to go through the eye of a needle than to get to heaven. Because all he got to do is, how's life with no suffering? How's life with some money? And what happens is when money floods into your life and your personality is not anchored in the person of God, then your power will subside. The devil is scared of powerful, prosperous people. Powerful, prosperous people. He doesn't want you in certain tax brackets. Because when you got certain type of paper, you can make things happen. When you got a good heart, a disciplined life, and a deep love and longing for God, and your money long too, oh man, you can change anything. Therefore, he says, let me throw a couple of stacks your way to see just how anchored you are into God. Because he knows the best way to get you away from God is sudden poverty and sudden prosperity. I want money that I earned, worked for, sweat for. Because the longer it takes you to get it, the longer you keep it. So in order to build a God-centered business, ministry, or personal brand, each and every one of us a brand. You don't got to have a business to have a brand. You are what people think of you. You'll get that tomorrow. You are, to a degree, what people think of you. Meaning, you have given some evidence to somebody that's who you are. That's why I used to be always upset with negative criticism. Regular people argue against criticism. Wise people take all criticism. Maybe I need to tone this down in my message to add a little bit of this to make sure I don't come off that. I'm not saying you become a slave to people's criticism, but you got to be able to chew the meat and spit out the bone of every critique so that you'll know exactly how to present yourself so that people won't think you're crazy. You know, people think this is a singles ministry. There's married people that say, I don't want to come unplug as a singles ministry. Because I wrote a book on Purpose of Singleness. Just because I had a Proverbs 31, because people think whatever has the most views, that must be what they're about. People, when they see the big of you, they forget to see everything else. In other words, we're not a singles ministry, you know, so married couples, come on out, come join us. You know, this ain't no club. That's why we did workshop format. And my apologies for doing all these concerts and poetry events and made it seem that way, but we're not that way. But anyway, you got to make sure you say, you know what, I'm going to look at my life to make sure I'm not putting off something that I'm really not. The Bible talks about do not do things to cause your brothers to stumble. You just got to make sure, okay, what am I doing that may give off the opinion or may give off the thought that I'm this way? We're not talking about haters and trolls. We're talking about souls who are genuinely looking for help. That's why if you want to be in this position, if you want to have a brand, if you want to be in front of the people, you got to make sure you have the character that the people can see emulates Christ. If you don't have a Christ-like character, you may be disciplined, but that sin will find you out. How do you come about formulating your own brand in a way that glorifies God and represents your own? Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understandings, but in all your ways acknowledge Him and He will direct your paths. If you want your paths directed, always acknowledge Him before you make decisions. Decisions leads to direction. Direction leads to destiny. Every decision you're making right now is scripting your destiny. Therefore, you got to say, God, before I make this major decision, not going to the bathroom, brushing your teeth. We're talking about major life-changing decisions. Marriage, city, where you invest your time, where you invest your money. We're talking about the bulk of your time, the bulk of your money, the bulk of your energy. You got to acknowledge God. And I promise you, when you acknowledge Him, He'll say, Josh, stop doing all those concerts, man. I remember God told me something. Whatever you use to draw them is what you're going to have to use to keep them. When I was doing those concerts and poetry events every other day and preaching 30 minutes and the performance was 45 to an hour, I drew a certain crowd. But when I start opening the Bible and we on hard chairs and hardwood tables and we just preaching the word, you get what you preach. You get what you put out. That's why I could have been bigger than who I am today, but bigger doesn't always mean the best. You got to learn how to grow slow and grow the right way. Every preacher in the room, every person that wants to be in ministry, fall in love with the Word of God, exegete it correctly, look at everything in context, because when you do that, you last longer than the gimmicks. God will always outlast gimmicks. You don't need gimmicks to bring anyone to God. All you need is God to bring people to God.